Every day, millions of shoppers walk the aisles of their favorite stores completely unaware of the subliminal information affecting their autonomy. Companies and stores have had years to develop these techniques to a point of perfection. The specific technique they use is what is known as priming. According to the definition given by changingminds.org, it states that priming is providing a stimulus that influences someone's near-term future thoughts and actions, even though they may not seem to be connected. An example of priming is when someone would go to handshake a job interviewer, and if their hand was warm, they would have a higher chance of getting the job. Companies can prime consumers without them even knowing it. In turn, consumers could be spending money they weren't even expecting to. According to the studies done by Professor of Psychology Peter Goldwitzer, if people are prepared for the prime, they can in turn be less manipulated by it. These plans are called if-then plans, and using them may help you spend your money a little better next time you decide to go shopping. However, you must first learn the techniques companies and stores use. In the book Brandwashed by Martin Lindstrom, he writes about the techniques that companies use to get consumers to buy the products. One of the stores he says leads the pack in consumer priming is Whole Foods. Some popular examples Whole Foods uses is having flowers out front to prime for freshness. This is because consumers are then primed to think that everything else in the store is fresh. They also stack empty boxes on top of each other to prime consumers into thinking new items are brought in fresh straight from the truck and onto the shelves. Also, you ever notice how produce is always in ice or covered in some sort of water? Well, this primes consumers into thinking the product is fresh, when in fact, this can actually make the produce rot faster. Lindstrom even goes on to say that the shade of yellow a banana can prime the consumer. Alright, you now know some techniques a store could prime you with, but what about specific products? Cereal is probably one of the best examples of this. Cereal has gone from oats in your bowl to part of your balanced breakfast by using a few psychological tricks to prime its consumers. In a study done by Cornell Food and Brand Lab researchers, they studied how eye contact with cereal box mascots can create more positive feelings and trust towards the product. To sell to adults, cereal boxes have their mascots give an upward degree angle of 0.43 degrees, while when selling to children, they have the mascots look at a downward degree angle of 9.67 degrees. The researchers also noticed that children's cereals were sold on the bottom shelves, while adult cereals were sold on the top shelves. In fact, mascots are the biggest reason cereal is part of the American culture today. In a study seen in the Social Neuroscience Journal, it was found that mass subliminal emotional information is suited to trigger processing in brain areas which have been implicated in empathy and thereby in social encounters. In layman's terms, this means that seeing the mascots happy and having fun can then prime these feelings towards the cereal. So you now know some things to look for. But what about the hear and smell for? In a study presented by Ron Milliman, he tested whether the tempo of music would change the flow of traffic, grow sales, and consumer awareness of the music. In the study, fast-paced music and slow-paced music did demonstrate that the tempo of music changed the flow of traffic. Flow of traffic was slower if the music was slower, and the flow of traffic was faster when the music was faster. There was also a correlation with the slow-paced tempo and an increase in gross sales. This is probably because the longer consumers are in the store, as demonstrated by the flow of traffic, the more they buy. When measuring the awareness the consumers had about the music, most answered, not sure, demonstrating the possibility that there were subconscious motivational effects. Hence, the consumers probably had no if-then plans. Another study involving music studied music's effect in advertising videos. It measured background music's effect on consumers' behavior in commercials and other advertising elements. The study used 71 participants and measured the effects of music on behavior by having the music that matched the mood of the ad and music that did not match the mood of the ad, as well as a control group which had no music playing during the ad. The results of the study support the hypothesis that variations in the formal music structure of background music in commercials may have significant influence over the emotional responses of an audience.
I'm waiting for that second chance, for a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason.
Now let's take a look at how smell can prime a consumer's behavior. According to a report written in the Consumer Journal of Psychology, Aranana Krishna states, perhaps the greatest growth in scent marketing in recent years has taken place with regard to the use of ambient scent. That is, emitting scent into the atmospheres in hotels, retail stores, casinos, or restaurants as an element of an environment's atmospherics. It has been researched that a pleasant ambient scent has improved evaluation, but only when the smell matches the seasonal atmosphere. It was found that revenue had increased when a scent was congruent to the type of clothing being sold. An example of this would mean there is a feminine scent, so women's clothing was sold more. Another use of scent priming that affects consumers' behavior is when the brands use signature scents. If, for example, a clothing store wanted to make itself more distinguishable from its competition, they might use this technique. Don't just take my word for it though. In an interview I gave to a Michaels manager, they discussed with me some of the techniques they use to influence their customers' buying habits. One of the points talked about was if there is any techniques using smell. Though they are not putting odors into the air specifically, they do sell scented items that can be smelled throughout the store. So in the fall, the candles Michaels sells will be smells such as cinnamon or pumpkin, and around Christmas, pine scents will be sold. This is an example of ambient scent as mentioned earlier. Similar to selling items specifically for a season, the florist designer had designed the windows recently with flowers in a basket with a bunny rather than a traditional vase. This is supposed to remind the consumer of Easter, and they'll end up buying this product even when they won't be using it for Easter purposes.
For the Easter Bunny?
No, here.
This Easter, bring a tradition out of its shell. Rice Krispies.
I had also asked about the type of music they play in the store. The music used in the stores is given to them by corporate each week. When asked about the tempo of the music, it was said to be varied between more upbeat and slow music and varied every other song. The music also comes in a variety of genres from classical to rock, and of course around the holidays they play songs related to that holiday. Music that fits the mood of the holiday can increase a greater emotional response in the consumers. In conclusion, the information in this video is just a small bit of the research done into what gets a consumer to buy products. There are plenty more techniques companies use to prime their consumers, but knowing at least a little more about them may help you spend your money more wisely. Even though research into priming is limited and mysterious, knowing just a few techniques can help you create the if-then plans to not be primed. So next time you go to the store, think about these techniques and remember, you can either get poor fast or get rich slow.